All right, everybody, this is going to be my very first video live action, and I realize that the quality of the video and even the sound is probably not so good since I'm just using my laptop. I don't exactly have the money to afford the equipment to do this right, but I figured I'd give it a shot. And I'd like to say in advance, I am sorry they haven't put up any new content for a long time. But I've just been really busy with life. You know how it is. So anyway, I've been seeing a lot of videos and speculation lately about the next Batman Arkham game and whether or not there's actually going to be one. So I figured I'd weigh in on it and just talk about what I think the next game should be like. Without further ado, here we go. The title that's been surfacing lately is titled Batman Arkham Legends or Legacy. Everyone's got this different one going around. But the villains they believe are going to be in it are the Court of Owls, which I think is a very good choice because it'd be much more interesting. But there's also the thought that maybe it'll be the League of Assassins. And I say that that's also good, but you know what? Let's go the extra mile and make it both. Eh? Court on one side, League on the other. One running Gotham secretly all this time and doing anything it takes to keep it that way. While the other group, the Assassins, are there to destroy Gotham, bring it to its knees so it can be reborn better. So that way you've got the villain forces both being the dominant force in the game, but they're also enemies of each other, which I think would bring up a lot of good boss battle situations. For instance, you could have a battle between one Talon and one of the League of Assassin members alongside of Batman fighting them. Now, you could do that a couple of different ways. A free-for-all fight, which, let's face it, that would be nuts. Of course, you could also still do that with, like, I guess, groups of each different set of villains, the Talons and the League's ninjas, just like they did with Bane's crew and Penguin's guys kind of duking it out over the chemical weapons. And back to the boss battle thing, though, is if you did do that, you could have both bosses call truce and fight Batman at the same time, which I don't think has been done so far. It's usually just one-on-one boss battles. I've never seen Batman take two bosses at the same time in any of these games. Unless you want to count those Titan goons, but I don't really count those guys, honestly. They're more like a sub-boss, not a boss. And how you would go about having the villain at the top on each organization. Everyone thinks Talon be the guy at the top, but Talon is the name of every single assassin ninja that's in the Court of Owls, right? So that makes it difficult to nail down, which is why I say you do some slight retconning with reworking of a villain that is in the Batman lore, in DC lore, actually, and make Owlman, the alternate version of Batman from another Earth, be the leader of the Assassins, but you go with the version of him that is actually Bruce Wayne's secret, long-lost brother that everyone is, up in the air about whether that's canon or not, whether he had a brother. But I say you go with that because that would bring a lot more depth to the whole thing. And it'd be an interesting way to bring Owlman into play, which would be honestly so cool. And your final battle situation for that could be Ra's al Ghul and Owlman versus Batman and, well, Robin or Nightwing, whichever way they decide to go with that. And you'd be able to do, like, tag team fighting, just like they did in Arkham Knight. except you'd be fighting two bosses as opposed to a huge group. Of course, if they're going to play it a certain way, I'm sure that some League assassins and Talon agents would show up too right in between the whole fight. But the whole thing would look cinematically awesome going from boss to boss within the battle. Like, could you just imagine how tough that would be? And you would be caught in the middle of trying to defeat both bosses while keeping them from killing each other or killing you. You know, like that's Batman's biggest thing. He knows that these two are going to try to kill each other alongside trying to kill him, but he just wants to knock them out. And I think that would just be a great, awesome way of doing the final battle, and a good source material mixture to get both organizations in the game. So once again, you would have what would be called shared boss level villains, who are the main title villains, which you kind of had happen in Arkham City. Now, many folks argue this, and if you don't agree with the thought that Arkham City had 3 bosses in charge of like the entire main plot of the game, that's fine. But from what I saw in the game, that's how it was. You had Hugo Strange, main villain first. Then you found out Ra's al Ghul was behind him, and he became main villain, but you fought him so early in the game, so it was like a little weird for me, I guess. But then you get Joker in there too, who steals the show just like he always does. And that brings up a good point right there too. Joker. I do think he should be in the game, but I think they should do him a little different. Like, don't have him steal the show. Have him be like an early situation in the game. You know, we get our Joker, we deal with him, maybe even Harley too, and then we're just done. You know, you don't see Joker again throughout the game. Okay, or maybe you find a way to incorporate him by having him help Batman for a change. Like, he don't want to lose Gotham City, and he definitely doesn't want to lose Batman because that's his playground and that's his playmate. You know? He's like, nobody's going to mess with you but me. So you move on from there of having him help out in some way if Batman got desperate enough to seek his help, which, let's face it, I don't think he ever has, but if he did for once in all of his career, that would be something drastic. Scratching that note, though, right there, because that's just a minor note, which I'm not 100% on. I would like him in there, but not all the way throughout the game. Now, the villains, actually, for this game, it occurs to me that no one really seems to have the best grasp of what villains should be in there. Now, I've done some research recently, minor. I haven't gone deep. So if I'm wrong on a couple of things, just bear with me. Add your notes if you like. Just please be kind, guys, okay? Be kind with what you say. So for the Talons, I mean, you got them right away. There's no names to any of them. You just got different like versions of them. If you go and look them up in the Court of Owl's storybooks that happened, then you'll see all the different variation ones, all their different tactics and what they did and who dealt with who and all that. So you could turn each of those guys into something. But as far as the League of Assassins, I do feel that you should have Ra's al Ghul and Talia, obviously, and even Nyssa. But then you got to have more bosses on that level that are a part of the bigger story. So basically what I'm trying to say here is, in this game, don't have like too many side bosses this time. It just feels like it's like pulling you one too many different directions. Or rather, what I'm trying to say is don't have side bosses that aren't tied to like the main characters in any way. If you do, only have like 2 or 3. I'm sorry. I know everyone loves having a bunch of different Batman villains get thrown together in here, and it's always fun. But if you want this story to stay on point and get straight to what's the core story, then you have to sacrifice one thing, and I think that that's some of the other villains. Just like how Arkham Origins had mostly assassin villains, all kinds of different villains. Seriously, I mean, think about it for just a moment. Arkham Origins, what like major rogues gallery villains that everyone knows off the top of their heads, whether they've read Batman comics or seen the TV show, any of the TV shows, really, the Adam West one, the animated one from the 90s, even the Batman. You had Jervis Tetch, the Mad Hatter. You had Firefly. And yeah, Joker, obviously. Yeah, Black Mask. And Deadshot. He's a bit of a staple Batman villain, really, when you think about it. And everybody else was relatively new after that. Oh, I forgot about Bane. Almost forgot about Bane there, sorry. But past that, everyone else was basically relatively new. So I think that worked real well because then you got to learn about these new characters and you had different types of situations for Batman going on, which is awesome as all hell. So they should just go with that again and have only League villains be the core villains. So who else would you want to have, lady? Shiva would be a good piece. David Kane. And that brings in one of Batman's trainers, mentors. Like, that is a very good choice right there. And he was even one of the assassin possibilities. You saw that in the Origins game. So having him show up here alongside League of Assassins, that would work out really good. And then there was Cheshire. I mean, she is technically one of the League's members, so if you wanted to throw her in there, you could. But if you did, I would say have her go up against Nightwing / Robin, again, whichever version of him they do, or Catwoman, who needs to be in this game as well. And whether or not they have Batgirl in it, I mean, that would be a very difficult thing to achieve, honestly, because we're not really clear when she started doing her thing in this game universe. All the thing we know for sure is her and Tim were an item, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say she didn't actually start doing her Batgirl thing till close to Dick moving on from being Robin and Jason coming in to being Robin. Like, it feels like she would be somewhere in the middle of that transition first, which means she would still be really young when she started doing it. But then I also found these other villains in the League of Assassins called the Seven Men of Death. And I think that would be a great set of villains to have in there, because then you have a whole mess load of new guys who could easily challenge Batman in various ways and his family members. And they would feature Merlin. Okay, think about that for a second. Merlin, the villain of Green Arrow, would be among those guys. He's one of them. So if you do that, you then get the opportunity to do this. You don't have to do this, but if you did, it would be awesome to have Green Arrow show up, like as another playable character, like for a test drive, you know, to see how he does and see whether or not you could spin off another game franchise with him later on. I think that would be a pretty good way to test the field, see how it works. And you'd have this awesome like archery battle going on between him and Merlin, you know, when it came up. But again, it's not necessary. I just think that these would be good sets of villains to use. And these seven men of death that I mentioned, I don't know all their names right now. but the fact that there's 7 of them increases the villain numbers. So again, those could be your side villains. But if you really want to have some staple Batman villains in the game, I would suggest Scarecrow for this game, because he would be a good choice to have be like a tool, would be the right word for him. He'd be a tool that the League uses. And yes, I know I'm basically using the story from Batman Begins by saying that, but let's just face it, that small part helps a great number for what they want to do to the city. And it would be one of the ways that they just try to take out the city best. I mean, let's face it, there's not much else you can think of right there that incorporates another villain from Batman. But as far as the main story goes, I feel that it should have Two-Face's origin be one of the big staples. So you gotta think about that for a moment. You got Harvey Dent, who is trying to clean up Gotham City. And you have the League of Assassins, who just want to tear it down because they don't see any salvation for this place. So what do? They try to get rid of Harvey Dent, who is trying to maintain the status quo and clean up what cannot be cleaned up in their eyes. Batman is of the same mindset, so he works alongside Harvey. But unbeknownst to both of them, at least for a short while, Harvey has actually been getting used the entire time by the Court of Owls. So, in a way, he is helping them without even realizing it. Because they, too, want to maintain the status quo of Gotham City. They want it to stay as it is. They don't want it to improve. They certainly don't want it to get much worse, but they need it to be where it's at so that they can stay in control, stay in power, stay in charge. And for the League to come in and try to ruin all that, well, that just, doesn't work for them at all. And that's where the conflict comes into play, with Harvey slapped in the middle of the whole thing. So you're basically watching the fall of your friend into the tormented Two-Face that he eventually becomes. So in the end, basically what I'm trying to get at is that you'll be seeing the origins of Two-Face, as well as the backstory and first dealings, really, with the Court of Owls and the League of Assassins in Batman's life for the game series. And how would they go about making Harvey into Two-Face? You could easily use Carmine Falcone in the game too, on some level. Like, he doesn't have to be a boss. I mean, could he even really be a boss? Let's get serious about that for a second. But you could feature him for once, which would be nice. And he's getting used by the League to do this to Harvey, whereas the court does not want anything to happen to Harvey, because even though Harvey thinks he's cleaning things up, he's actually just keeping things the way they are. But the chemical compound that gets used to turn Harvey into Two-Face, I think you could find a way to incorporate that on some way to even create Clayface, whether within the main game here as a side villain. Because like I said, if you want to have some other side villains in the game, I do think that Clayface would be a nice touch to have as one of the main staple ones. But as far as anybody else, I've seen a lot of names get tossed around, but I'm only going to go with like 2 other ones, which is Killer Moth, only because I want to see Nightwing deal with him. That's one of his first villains, really, as Robin. It's his own personal guy. And it would be pretty boss just to see the ventriloquist for once. You know, a part of me really wants to say Maxi Zeus as well, but I think he should be left for like another game where you could do more with him. Uh, or if you were to put him in this game, I'm going to show you one way that that works. From The Batman, he was a corporate man, political figure who tried to become the mayor, and that didn't happen. Now, I'm not saying do that exact thing, but having him as somewhat of a politician gone nuts is one way of handling him. But if they don't go that route, which I'm pretty sure they're not, he would have to be saved for another game. So back to where I was. My three picks: Clayface, Killer Moth, and Scarface, the ventriloquist. Need to be the side villains that you do on the fly within the game somewhere. Other than that, any other side villain situations should be tied strictly to the League of Assassins or the Court of Owls. That way you're staying within the frame work and not really like dividing the forces too much within the game and putting too many things in there that don't need to be in there. Now that's the main game and the main story, focusing on Harvey, the court, and the League. I think that would be the best way to go about it. And you would get the alternate delivery of a Batman story, which, let's face it, everyone wants. And I do hope that that's where this goes. That's all I got to say on the matter. So if you guys enjoyed this, leave a like, comment, and share thoughts if you want. If you have some disagreements, please be kind about it. And be kind about any remarks about the video quality. As I said, first time doing this low grade tech. If you want to give me some pointers on how to do better, I'd appreciate it. Anyway, have a good night, guys, and I'll see you around.